Hey Grant, how you doing?
Doing great.
Listen, man, great to have you on the show today. Excited to talk to you about a controversial topic, which is how flawed our current media is in this country. I think the more we learn about the flaws, the more, distressing it becomes. And I look forward to hearing your opinion since you've been in journalism for several decades.
Yes, everything is flawed, so we have to figure out how to work it out in the journalism world.
Totally. Let's start with your background. How did you first get involved with journalism?
Our father was on Channel 7 in the early 60s, like 59, 60. So we all got involved with that way. Then my father left Channel 7, went to WEDR, it's a radio station in Miami. Then he bought a shopper. That's all ads. And then he got into then sooner or later got into the newspaper business. And then 20 years later, my brother and I got into the newspaper business. But 1969, when I was in sixth grade, I put out the first newspaper at Howard Drive Elementary called the Howard Drive Herald. So at sixth grade, I knew what we wanted to do.
And what about in your experience, since you've been doing it for so long, explain the power of media. Essentially, media determines how we view the world, correct?
Well, I don't know if it views the world, but gives it a different opinion. Not everybody's opinion is correct. I write opinion pieces once a week. And the difference is on what we do. If you disagree, we want your opinion. We want you to tell our opinion. We want you to state what you see are the facts. Other media doesn't do that. We want, if you disagree with me, and if I'm on a video podcast next week, I'll have you come on and voice your opinion. And if you're in print, we'll publish your issues. And so we battle it every day. I had an issue on something in South Dade, and I got a lot of people complaining to me in person. I put my phone number on all my stories. I put my phone number or email so you could contact me direct.
Now, how do you feel that journalism has changed in this country over the last several decades?
Well, it's interesting because has it changed, or are the consumer getting smarter? Is the internet giving more information? So did it change? I don't know. I think it's changed, but I think it's changed for the better because people now get their own opinions. They could go on Google, get some facts, and voice their opinions about it. So I think it has changed, but I think for the better.
Now, what about the factors that drive news stories, right? What in the past, do you feel like the factors were different than the factors that drive news stories today?
Oh, absolutely. There's some local, the daily newspapers, the reporters, they have to get clicks. If their story's good, it's how many clicks they got. Whether it's factual, is it correct? But they have to get clicks, and they get graded that way, and they get paid that way. Doesn't mean the story's correct, but they're getting clicks.
I mean, that can't seem like a good system, right? I mean, as a reporter, your job really should be to give the facts, give the story, not just what sells.
That's correct. Some of these stories, these major dailies are putting out great stories, but it's not getting clicks. And the consumer doesn't know that. So it hurts the reporters who, if you're a reporter in a major daily, you do it because you love it, not because of money. They do not make any good money. I can tell you that.
And what about major media channels? We're talking MSNBC, Fox, CNN, these major news stations. Currently, what are the most important factors that drive their stories?
Well, I'm a TV junkie, so I got CNN, I got Fox, MSNBC. I'm switching back and forth, and the same opinion because I want to hear what the opposite side is saying. So it's really, I happen to enjoy it. But you could get addicted to whatever station, whether it's Fox or CNN, and all of a sudden you're getting only one side of the opinion.
Correct. And I guess that's my question. How can the same event have such drastic different stories to it? So I guess what are the factors that drive CNN, that drive Fox, that drive MSNBC? How are they spinning their story?
They're spinning it to their consumer, the viewers. They're spinning it to make sure that the viewers stay with them. But this is a tough challenge. About 4 years ago, one of our biggest clients said to us, if you continue writing about this commissioner, we're going to stop advertising with you. The biggest. So I told that client, well, you better stop now. And I said, just remember, you just came from a communist country 20 years ago when Pravda, that's the Russian newspaper, but another country, was doing something that you couldn't do. So we don't want to be controlled by any of our customers. And guess what? The guy changed his mind and says, you're right. We need to support free and independent voices.
Correct. Now, a term that's thrown around is corrupt. Would you call American media corrupt in the sense that it it may fail to do what it claims to do, what it should do, and what society expects it to do?
Repeat that question again. Oh, is it corrupt?
Yeah, is it corrupt?
I do not believe that, but it's a great way. There was a mayor in Northeast Dade, one of the richest cities in Dade County, did not like what I wrote and stood up at a commission meeting and says, fake news. Mine were factual. Everything was correct, but he stood up and said fake news to give the doubt to the consumers that read our paper who are watching the thing. So it's not corrupt. I don't believe it is.
I guess let me ask it this way. Do you feel like American people are getting accurate information when they turn on the TV?
They're getting one side. That's why I go to CNN, I go to Fox, MMC to hear different opinions. I think the reporters are trying to do their best. It's a little confusing when you watch Fox or CNN. Is that a news story or is that an opinion piece? Because if they're all sitting together, that's a opinion piece. If the news reporter is out on the street, I think they're covering the news and it's not biased.
How about if I ask you, how influential are political agendas in media and why?
Oh, the political agenda, it's a machine. Whether you go to the smallest city, into the counties, the state, the political machines is just moving all the time. Yes. It's very difficult. It's very difficult how to read it.
So I guess if political agendas are a strong motivating or driving force with media, do you feel like it should be that way, right? Because should politics be affecting the way news is presented? In my opinion, no. Um, the news is the news, a fact is a fact, but the fact that different stations have different political agendas certainly alters the way the media is perceived. Do you think that there's any way to separate news, media, which should be current events, facts, from political agendas?
Yes, but like we said, when it's opinion, when you look at the CNN and Fox, when they're sitting at a couch or together, that's an opinion piece. The reporter that's in a foreign country or covering a event, that is not biased at all. They're just doing job. But when they're sitting on a couch, that's opinion pieces. That is not news. But that reporter that's out on the street, local or national, covering wars, they're doing it because they love it. They don't care, Republican, Democrat, or Independent. The reporters do not care, and it's a tough call. And we
I
don't
was reading a piece. Sorry, go on.
We don't know how the producer at the station or the editorial room will cut it out or not cut it out. But if a reporter's on the street, I believe that is unbiased.
I was reading in the Harvard Business Review recently, there was a study that showed that journalists and politicians have become, and this is their quote, journalists and politicians have become ensnared in a symbiotic web of lies that misleads the public. Do you agree?
No, I disagree. I mean, so we're saying everybody's corrupt. The politicians are corrupt. The media is corrupt. I don't believe that. I mean, I think majority of politicians, elected officials, are there to do a good job because their name's on it. When they leave the political world, they want to be able to say, "Hey, I did a good job." I do not agree with some of our people in Miami, but I know they're trying to do their best. And I don't believe that they're all corrupt. I do not believe that.
What about financial agendas? We covered political agendas, which is obviously critical when you're talking about media. What about financial agendas? You talked about getting clicks and kind of sensationalizing stories, things that sell, things that really grab the consumer. How influential are financial agendas and why?
Well, it's money. The financial agenda is everything's about money in Miami. Well, across the world. I consider Miami-Dade County our own state. Florida is one state, Miami-Dade County. The financial, every money revolves everything. So that's why it's a tough call. How to get it straight? That's a difficult one.
Yeah. And you can imagine as the viewer, right? You turn on the TV, you watch the news, whatever station that may be, knowing that that station has political and financial agendas that they're going to follow regardless of the story. So
Well,
I think the
you're absolutely.
consumer, Mhm.
I'm sorry. Finish that.
No, I think the consumer needs to make sure that they view more than one station, like you're saying, because if a certain station has a certain political and financial agenda, they're going to follow those agendas regardless of the news.
Well,
And
and
so you
you don't
have to have multiple stations.
correct, and you cannot assume that this radio station or this TV station just assume they have some agenda. Maybe it's not hidden agenda, but there's an agenda. So you have to watch and watch all these TV stations, read all these different newspapers to get your own opinion, and you have to
Correct. And
stand up for your opinion. That's the issue. There's the free and independent newspapers like us. Those newspapers are there's not a lot of us. You have to stand up for what you think is right. I've been here. How long have I been here? I'm born in Miami, so I'm 67 years old. I'm not going anywhere. We've been in the newspaper business, in the media business, 42 years, and we tried to fight the fight for people.
in your opinion, how does the US media compare with other industrialized countries?
I think the United States has multimedia, TV, radio, print, all social media. So it's giving everybody their own opinion. That's what's happening. Everybody has their own opinion and they're posting it. So it's very confusing in the United States. Other countries don't have mass media as much as we do. So I think we have a great advantage.
Speaking of mass media, how do you feel that social media, which is what you're basically talking about, anyone can post their opinion at any time? Do you think that helps or hurts the mainstream media, distrust, and conspiracy theories?
Well, there's no question. Some of these social media people that you can post, they're getting paid. They're getting paid to promote their agenda. So it's very confusing to the regular consumer what is real, not real. If they're stating facts that aren't really facts. So is it helpful or hurtful? I think it's a little hurtful, but that's why America's great. Everybody has their own opinion, and we and
Now,
we have
sorry.
no. We all have to look at all different media and make our own opinion on stuff.
How do you feel that the COVID pandemic altered public distrust? Was that something that hurt the US media or was something that boosted it?
Well, the COVID is very confusing for everybody. Do you get shots? Do you not get shots? I listen. I went to my doctor. My doctor said, go get shots. I get shots. I said, Doc, when you get shots, I'm getting shots. So, but it was very confusing because half the world says, you make a good point. Half the United States says, I'm not going to get shots because blah, blah, blah. So I think COVID helped us.
I mean, COVID is a perfect example of how the media really had nothing to do with the truth and was just political agendas.
That is correct. But I still think that COVID helped the United States. We haven't had a crisis like that. And I think that, when was the last time we had a crisis like that? 50, 100 years, 60
Yeah,
years?
something like that.
So I
Yeah.
just think it was good.
Do you think there's any reliable, non-biased news sources out there, or is that a thing of the past? That's like a fictional ideal.
It's like in Washington, the Washington Post was supposed to be it. But now it's slanted. It's owned by Amazon, correct?
Yeah.
Jeff Bezos, he lived in Miami for a couple of years. There's got to be some bias in there when the owner is one of the richest men in the world. I'm sure the agenda is being pushed some way that we don't know.
Correct. And everyone talks about the BBC maybe being an example of what the least biased news source would look like, but even that obviously has ulterior motives. Um, would you say that only a minority of Americans recognize how skewed the media can be, or do you feel like most Americans just turn on the news, listen to it, and take it at face value and don't ask questions?
Yes, I agree with that. I
That
agree
most
with
Americans take it at face value and don't ask questions.
correct. Whatever station they like, we'll just pick Miami 4, 7, 10, 6, 23, 51. Whatever they're used to watching, they believe it. They believe in that newscaster.
Now, what do you recommend for those people?
What do I recommend?
Meaning, do you think that's a good way to take in the news, looking at one station,
You
one
can't.
opinion, or do you recommend that people question what they're hearing, listen to other news sources, that type of stuff?
I think the educated people are going to fact check it. The younger people, I say younger, 40, 50, 30, 30, 20, they're doing fact checks. The older people, they're not. I you have to fact check everything, and we're available. You just go on to Google and do a fact check. Not that that's perfect, but it's close.
And something else that's really spiraled out of control, especially over the last decade, like we were talking about earlier, are these conspiracy theories. They've always been around, but they're clearly at a much higher rate. Everything is there's so many rampant, conspiracy theories for every event that happens. What do you think is the reason for the increase in conspiracy theories in this country?
Well, the people way over here, the people way over here are throwing mud on everything. The people in the middle, we all want to move forward, but if you're not winning on either side, they're putting conspiracy thoughts into everybody.
So you think it's a product of the polarized politics that we have?
Yes, no question,
Yeah.
no question.
And do you feel that the way our media is going, the different agendas that are on these media stations lists, do you feel like the media plays a role in putting American democracy at risk?
That's a very good question. Is it putting at risk? I think most Americans want what's right for our country, but I don't think it's a risk. I think it's a challenge. So I think that every time something comes up, people are fighting to make sure that it's honest and good for our United States.
I like that view. And off of that positive comment, give us your prediction of what the US media looks like in 10, 20 years here in the US. You've seen it for the last 40, you've seen it evolve. Give us your prediction on the trend and where it ends up in 10, 20 years.
Well, I got 30 more, Doc. I
Love
got
it.
if my
Love it.
brain. If I can last to 97, I will. It's an interesting question. Where do I see it? Everybody says that in the 30s, when radio came around, they said newspapers are going to die. When TV came around, they said newspapers are going to die. When social media came around, they said newspapers are going to die. Nothing dies. Everybody's working to get more educated, more news to the local people. So do I see? I think it's going to be more micro news over in the next 20 years. People want, like for us, people want to know what the Girl Scouts are doing, the Boy Scouts are doing, what the local people doing. I think the major dailies are going to have to cover better local government. And I think the media is going to be stronger than ever because people are dependent on it. Remember, before our ancestors used to listen to the radio all day. I think we're all going to become news junkies in the next 20 years. We're all going to, and I don't know if TV is going to be around. You
Correct.
know,
It's really evolving very quickly. And I would say, number one, thank you for an amazing interview. I really appreciate your time. I think the take home point from an interview like this, talking to someone like yourself who knows the field better than anyone else, is it's evolving, it's changing. It's impossible to get an unbiased news feed. And it's up to us as the consumers to recognize that when someone on the news tells you something, they may have, as we talked about, political agendas, financial agendas. So you got to take that into consideration, look at other news sources, do your own research, and figure out if that really is the correct information. It's on the consumer. I think that the onus is on us when we're listening this to realize that someone is not just reading us the facts. It's being spun in a way that benefits that news station to some degree.
Doc, when a patient, you see a patient, you give your opinion. The patient says, "Hold on, doc," and they turn their back on you and they Google what you just told them. They're getting a second opinion. Correct? It happens, I'm sure.
Correct.
Or a
Mm-hmm.
third opinion, even though you told them. That's how the news is going to be. We have to get people to make sure you get the second opinion, third opinion, until you get the right answer. Listen, I don't do that with my doctors. My doctors say, I listen to them. But we all want to get a second, third opinion, and we have to do that in the news world. Get other people's opinions, and then make your own opinion the right opinion.
Yeah, I think the only difference when it comes to medicine, I mean, I always tell my patients, I'm fine with you getting as many opinions as it takes. Just get it from a specialist who knows what they're talking about. Because not all doctors are specialists, not all doctors are particularly proficient at a certain condition. And I think it would be great if what you hear in the media was factual. And the problem is a lot of times it can be skewed. So I think the work on the consumer becomes intense because you're hearing something and it may or may not be factual, and that obviously becomes difficult. Everyone I think kind of wants the days of Walter Cronkite, but those obviously aren't coming back anytime soon.
Well, right. Good night, David. Good night, Chet. Yeah, and back then, everybody was on their edge of their chairs, listening to them. So it was those were great times, and we're going to get back to that. We're going to get.
I hope so. I hope so. Listen, Grant, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate all your opinions and your insight.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
All right, my friend. Take care.